1 minute ago, Taylor Swift accuses Diddy. Diddy used the ERAS tour to hunt girls. This is not a theory, not an embellished Reddit thread, not a dramatized retelling. It is a matter of record federal filings, sworn witness statements, digital forensic logs, and one misplaced email. One accidental forward that blew open the door to a system built to make people disappear without a trace. That system followed a music tour, and it started with Taylor Swift, spring 2023. Swift's ERAS tour wasn't just a concert series, it was a cultural movement. Entire cities transformed in her wake. Stadiums overflowed. TikToks exploded nightly. Brands bid millions just for adjacency. And yet while the world celebrated, another machine moved in silence. A shadow system. A hidden operation that only came into focus when an email thread was accidentally sent to an inactive Swift LLC archive address. That archive had been under federal subpoena for an unrelated case. A financial probe into one of Sean Diddy Combs' sponsorship entities. But what investigators found changed the course of the courtroom and possibly the trajectory of one of pop culture's most dominant eras. The email was marked as routine. Subject line VIP review, Nashville, Tampa. It appeared logistical. Vendor updates, credential batches, notes on wristbands and backstage setup. But buried deep 127 lines in was a single instruction. Send the scout names directly to L.A. Mark. The line was highlighted in red, not just for emphasis. It had been part of an auto-tag communication protocol used by a now-defunct entity called Pulse Events Global. Pulse wasn't on any official contract, not in the tour's promotional materials, not listed in Swift's known partner network, but Pulse showed up in metadata. Its shadow email domain had been blind carbon copied on multiple threads across 5 city stops. Prosecutors paused the trial to review what came next. A full chain of 14 names, code names like Crimson 10, internal tags like Sync West and Pulse Event Inbound. Each one lined up geographically with a Swift tour city, each tagged with private routing instructions. These weren't fan upgrade lists. These were asset designations. The email, originally intended for internal review, had been sent by a junior social coordinator, a recent hire. It landed in the archive of a former tour manager. That archive had been handed over to the FBI 2 weeks earlier, which is how a backstage fan logistics memo became Exhibit 42A in a federal case. Day 4 of the trial opened with a new witness. Her identity remained sealed. Her role did not. She had been a VIP coordinator on the southeast leg of the ERAS tour. I thought it was for fan experiences, she testified, like surprise upgrades or meet and greets. She pointed to the phrase, "Send West." I asked what it meant once she said, "I got a message the next day. It said, 'Stars don't look back, neither should you.'" It was anonymous. I never asked again. The courtroom watched a still photo from Nashville. A girl barely 19 waved to a tour truck in full Swift regalia. Friendship bracelets stacked to her elbow. A crimson wristband glinting under floodlights. 14 minutes later, footage ended. The camera cut off at the loading zone gate. Her social accounts went dark the same night. Next came a back-end credential screenshot. Her name appeared. Not as a guest, not as a fan, as an intern, assigned to backstage check-in. Her final system login was time-stamped 7:14 p.m. After that, nothing. The next exhibit arrived in a battered red Pelican case, a solid-state hard drive labeled simply Miami Night 6. The drive had not been retrieved from an office or cloud server. It came from a gym locker in Fort Lauderdale, rented under a fake name traced back to a former private security consultant who once worked the Combs event circuit. The drive was encrypted, AES 256 level. Federal Digital Forensics cracked it in 6 hours. The top-level folder was labeled Scout Sync. Inside were subfolders for Nashville, Tampa, Atlanta, Dallas, Denver, and Las Vegas. Each contained photos, backstage logs, and RFID tracker pings. But one file, video log 3A, stopped the room. The courtroom transcript read aloud the audio. Voice 1. Yo, this is confirmation. Swift VIP polls are clean. Voice 2, routed to Shell East. Flagged TS. Voice 1. Don't touch her. She's heat right now. There was no ambiguity. Swift wasn't a participant. She was a fixed variable, a shield. They were told not to approach her, not because she was off limits, but because something had already happened before, and they'd been warned. Witness 12 took the stand next. A former contractor who had worked private gigs from Ibiza to Atlanta. They never touched her, he said. They couldn't. She was too visible. He described the method. Following tour infrastructure, not the artist, the fans, the entourage, the chaos. It's a machine, he explained. Moving cities, moving bodies, constant rotation. And Taylor's tour was the biggest moving machine we'd ever seen. When asked directly if she was involved, he shook his head. No. But she made it easier for them. I don't think she knew. He referenced a property on Star Island once used by the Combs family for retreats. He recalled guest logs, partial names, one that bore resemblance to a known member of Swift's backstage team. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge called for order. But the idea had already been planted. Swift's tour wasn't the target. It was the perfect vehicle. The ERAS tour had been used as camouflage. And the names they were routing west, they weren't lucky fans. They were assets. Being moved, systematically. It started with red. Not the album, not the lipstick, the wristbands. At first they looked like fan merch. But by mid-tour, 6 photos had surfaced from 6 cities each, showing different women wearing the same exact crimson band. The problem that shade wasn't sold by Ticketmaster. It wasn't offered by the tour team. And it didn't match any official VIP package. The prosecution introduced them as Exhibit 42C, a collage of stills, angles, venues, each band identical in hue and width, each woman flagged in later court records, each one no longer active on social media after her photographed appearance. Defense attorneys attempted to claim it was unofficial merchandise, a coincidence, a color trend. But the prosecution had prepared. They displayed an internal text thread pulled from a recovered iCloud account tied to a third-party marketing partner used early in the ERAS campaign. Text message export sender redacted, push Crimson 10 only to final shortlist. Do not sync to merch list. It routes directly to Pulse. Confirm VIPs receive Night 2 invite. Group text only. No individual comms. The courtroom froze. Because this was not just strategy. It was routing, instructions, filters. And then came the line that cut through the gallery. Diddy wants models. Age ceiling Chapman 25. There was no ambiguity anymore. This wasn't fan engagement. It was asset selection, controlled lists, and the ERAS tour was being leveraged as a harvesting network. A mother took the stand. Her daughter had entered what they believed to be an Instagram-based contest, one promising an exclusive acoustic set reposted by a Swift fan page called Swift Surprise Events. They received a package by mail. Inside one crimson wristband. No letter, no branding, just an address and a date. We thought it was a special event, the mother said, trembling. She left with a friend. She never made it to the venue. The courtroom dimmed as security footage from Dallas loaded. Timestamp 6:47 p.m. Location private gate east of the stadium. The girl walks through wearing her red wristband. She is not seen exiting. Not on public cameras. Not on internal staff logs. She vanishes inside the perimeter. Her phone disconnected 3 hours later. Final ping 30 feet from a restricted trailer compound. Prosecutors then shifted to metadata. One of the Crimson 10 had worked unpaid at a 2022 fashion event, tied to Comium's Global. Her contract listed a defunct model agency. That agency's payment records linked to Pulse Guest Relations, a shell company now dissolved. It wasn't isolated. It was a network, built on repetition, harvested from visibility. Tour by tour, city by city. The FBI profiler on site gave context. Red is often used in asset movement protocols. Visually benign, symbolically strong, it serves as both access and alert. The courtroom learned the wristbands weren't just decorative, they were passive RFID tags. Trackable, syncable, silent. The phrase, "push Crimson 10, didn't refer to color preference. It was a pipeline command. Then came the video. A resurfaced fan clip from Tampa, posted, deleted, then recovered from backup servers. A girl films herself near a backstage gate. A woman with a clipboard whispers something to a man in a gray hoodie. Seconds later, the girl is tapped on the shoulder and asked to delete the footage. She didn't. The clip showed two girls in red bands being ushered toward a non-labeled entrance. One looks directly at the camera, then vanishes into the gate. None of them appear on any official tour credential list. Next, a new witness. A quiet man in a gray suit, formerly on Swift's logistics team. He took the stand with visible discomfort. When asked what he knew about Crimson 10, he said nothing. When asked if he had ever seen them routed, he paused, then nodded. Once, in Nashville, night 2, the bands were pre-sorted, not through our system. I flagged it to corporate, never heard back. Next month, I was reassigned. The prosecutor asked who received the corporate report. The name was redacted. But the digital routing ID tied to an outside consulting firm, one with traceable payments from Comes Tech LLC. Then came the most chilling moment yet, a cassette tape necklace, found in a boutique hotel room, left behind on a windowsill. The pendant was real, silver, retro, inside a functioning tape, sealed. When played by FBI techs, it revealed muffled audio, a girl's voice. I got lucky that I'm prettier in person. Silence. There's someone behind the mirror. I saw them move. Click. The cassette had been tagged as part of a local missing person file in Nashville. The tape was reclassified once the girl was confirmed to be on the Crimson 10 list. She had checked into the hotel, but not the venue. A housekeeper later found a red envelope under the bed. Inside, a blank wristband, a torn concert ticket, a note. I won something I didn't sign up for. By now, the courtroom wasn't skeptical. It was stunned. All deniability had evaporated. There were systems, patterns, warnings, and it was working because it had always been hidden inside something too massive, too bright, too beloved to question. The ERAS tour. Next came the dancer, a man with steady eyes, cap pulled low. He had worked 6 cities. Southeast leg, Swift tour. I saw the wrong tape, he said. He described how after rehearsal he walked into the green room. The door was locked. 30 seconds later it opened. A woman in a red dress walked out. Not on the roster, no lanyard. She looked scared. Inside he saw a camera on a tripod, red standby light, a fake interview backdrop, 2 girls, 1 crying, 2 men in suits by the exit. They told me I had the wrong room, threw me a can of sparkling water, said, "Smile next time, we tape everything." He didn't tell anyone, not until he saw a court clip months later, in the background his voice, asking you good to the girl in red. That was the moment he realized something deeper. They weren't just taping the girls. They were taping them all. Across 3 cities, Miami, Denver, Las Vegas, hotel staff reported identical setups. Black curtains, recording rigs, wristband girls present each time, unregistered, never acknowledged. The system was always mobile, but it was never random. The tape IDs all followed one code, CCRRTG, Come's catalog, Red Room, Tour Guest, and one drive was labeled TZRW1, Taylor Swift Red Room, Witness 1. When asked if he saw the girl again, the dancer shook his head. But 2 weeks later, her trailer caught fire. She was replaced. No announcement, no name. The system reset, and the show went on. The shift came in silence. Not a confession, not a leak. A shift in posture tone resistance. A new witness entered the courtroom with a blank expression. She had not spoken to press. Her name was not redacted, but no one had seen her speak. Not until now. She was part of the Crimson 10, but unlike the others, she hadn't vanished. She'd just stopped posting, deleted her socials, changed her number, transferred schools. When asked why she agreed to testify, her answer was simple. I didn't want to be next. Her story picked up where the tape left off. Nashville, May 2023. She'd entered through the East Service Gate. No check-in, no badge scan, just a clipboard and a whispered name. She was given a red envelope. Inside, one band, 1 hour, one address. It wasn't the arena, she said. It was a guest house. At the property, she met 3 others. No one used real names. They were handed NDA forms. She signed hers with a fake signature. They weren't there for a performance, not even a rehearsal. They were dressed, lined up, photographed, then split into pairs and placed in rooms. I asked who the shoot was for. Someone said, "It's promo, but you're not the brand." She said she wanted to leave. A man at the door said it would be flagged. Flagged how? The prosecutor asked. He said my face had already been loaded. When the prosecution introduced a screen cap from a now defunct web interface labeled Guest Stack, she confirmed it was the system. Her face was tagged with 3 labels. Crimson 10 compliant, possible carryover. The term carryover had appeared before, once buried in Exhibit 42FA, a clause in an Ariana Grande event logistics file. The witness explained that after the Nashville shoot, she received 2 emails from a different account. It used only initials AG. It wasn't until 2 months later that she realized she'd been flagged for an appearance in Los Angeles during Grande's Fashion Week after-party. I wasn't on her team, she said. I wasn't even on her radar. But she had been rerouted, quietly, digitally. She was invited by a fan-facing promotion account, given an access QR, and placed on a guest manifest labeled Tier 2. The courtroom watched stills from the Ye Hotel rooftop. Grande was performing. 2 women from Crimson 10 were seen entering through a back elevator. The witness confirmed both. They weren't industry, they weren't staff, they weren't smiling, she said. One was crying in the hallway. The court then reviewed a sponsorship contract dated late 2022. It linked a fragrance brand to both Swift and Grande. A subclause detailed Tier 2 data activation across sister campaigns. When asked if either artist signed the clause directly, the forensic analyst replied flatly, "No, their management firms outsourced to consulting firms that did." The consultant's name, Combs Experience Group. The room fell into a rare, unnatural quiet, because it wasn't just the fans who were being routed. It was the data, the optics, the bodies. They were turning high-visibility tours into resource lanes. And the celebrities were the camouflage. Later that afternoon, the FBI revealed one more system. It was called PulseMap, pulled from a disused event staff server. The interface showed a city-by-city map of tour stops overlaid with names, heat signatures, scouting metadata, and a separate tab labeled Holdbacks. Holdbacks were candidates not yet routed, not yet deployed, still in system. One girl from the list was present in the courtroom. She stood up voluntarily. "I thought I won a fan lottery," she said. "They sent me bracelets, a wristband, even a certificate." The certificate was shown, logo blurred, watermarked with a now removed Swift fan campaign. The language was chilling. "Congratulations, you've been noticed." The witness said she went to the meet location in Miami. She never entered. The man outside asked for ID. She asked what this event was for. He smiled. He said, "You remind me of Cassie." The courtroom erupted. That name wasn't supposed to be mentioned. but now it was part of record. The witness left the line, never looked back. A week later she received a text. Wrong address. Next time follow through. The number was traced, burned, but its IMEI matched a burner device used during a prior COMES event in the Bahamas. The court was silent. The girl sat down. She was 19. Later that day, a final image appeared on screen. A fan-shot crowd photo. Nashville Night 3, fireworks overhead, confetti falling. In the corner, a single girl in red, not clapping, not cheering, just walking away. She had the band, she had the look, and then she was gone. The warning had been public all along, not buried, not encrypted, not hidden in court files or backstage. It had been posted online, on a fan account, Swift-coded. To most, it looked like a standard lyric theory page. Easter eggs, tour outfits, caption riddles. But when the FBI subpoenaed the IP address behind the posts, it wasn't linked to a fan. It belonged to a digital campaign manager from Pulse Events. The account had under 15,000 followers. Quiet, harmless. Until June 1st, 2023, when it posted its final message, "When the music stops, don't clap, run." The profile went dark. Avatar changed to static. No posts, no trace. But the post before that had included a photo of a red envelope and a caption, "She's not ready for what's coming. Red isn't just a color anymore." It had been uploaded 3 days before the first confirmed disappearance. Prosecutors confirmed the account had posted predictive references to nearly every known Crimson 10 event. Wristbands, guest houses, videotapings, even the phrase that haunted the trial, "Not every VIP is meant to return. Some are just meant to be seen." It had been a breadcrumb trail, an internal warning system, a coded leak, and no one had noticed. Until one of the Crimson 10 girl number 6 recognized a screenshot during court. She whispered to her attorney. They flagged the judge. The account had sent her a DM 6 days before her scheduled tour stop. It read, "If you feel lucky, wear silver. If not, don't go." She wore silver. But she didn't attend. She said something and the message made her feel sick. The court reviewed the account's creation logs. The email used for verification was tied to a Pulse Events burner. The backup number had been listed on 2 Combs Experience Group staffing rosters. This wasn't a rogue actor. This was controlled, embedded. The next witness was a cyber forensics expert from the Department of Justice. He confirmed the account had never been flagged for misinformation. Its posts had been too subtle, too coded. He said, this was not a fan page, it was a mirror. The prosecution presented a final forensic timeline. Each red band appearance was mapped alongside a Swift-coded post. 9 out of 10 matched within 72 hours. The 10th had been deleted before anyone could archive it. The gallery murmured. The timeline showed deliberate choreography, not just movement but messaging, and it was all hiding inside the world's most watched music tour. Later, another exhibit was introduced, a voicemail, recovered from a burner phone linked to a former guest wrangler. The voice was male, calm, clear, confident. "Grande is safe. Don't worry. She doesn't know. Just keep using the ones from Swift. They're already marked." The judge moved to seal the audio, but not before the courtroom heard the last line. "The blonde made it easy. The brunette will keep it quiet." There was no need to guess who the blonde was. The prosecution asked the DOJ expert to explain the implication. They weren't improvising. They had protocol. They had fallback candidates. Red was the first signal. Silence was the second. The court broke for recess. That evening, the FBI served 2 new warrants, one in Los Angeles, one in Atlanta. They were looking for documents, but what they found was something else. At a Brentwood estate, in the remnants of a burned trash pile, agents recovered a fragment of cardstock. It had been scorched, edges curled, but legible. Invitation C10 final, Nashville drop. On the back, one handwritten line, "I knew you'd haunt all of my what-ifs." The lyric wasn't a coincidence. It was a clue, a signal to the Swift fan base. But the card wasn't from Taylor. It had been mailed to the admin of the Swift-coded account. Why would Pulse Events send a lyric-stamped invite to their own fake fan account? Because the account wasn't for fandom. It was a fail-safe, a digital black box. In case the machine broke, the admin had left one more message. It was buried inside account metadata, a status update never pushed to the feed. It read, "Red is the route, silver is the exit." It time-stamped 5 hours before the account went dark, and 1 hour before the first emergency call from Nashville was placed. What no one had predicted was the fire, not metaphorical, not symbolic. An actual blaze reported by hotel staff 2 hours after Nashville Night 3. It was isolated, one trailer, one intern's belongings, the girl who wore the cassette necklace, the one whose voice had warned about the mirror. The official report listed the cause as electrical malfunction, but the surveillance footage missing, from one hallway, one angle, one 90-minute window, and the hotel's security vendor, Pulse Digital Solutions, a Combs affiliate. In court, the detail was introduced quietly, almost casually, but it shattered the defense's timeline, because the fire had occurred after she'd already checked out. The next morning, hotel staff found her wristband torn in half, her badge snapped, her photo still taped to a crew locker door circled in red marker, but she was gone. The backup dancer from Part 2 returned to the stand. He brought with him a USB drive. On it, a backstage video he'd secretly saved, not from the green room, from his trailer. He had recorded ambient footage to practice choreography. What he captured was never meant to be seen. In the background, through a sliver of mirror reflection, a girl in red sat alone, not moving. A man entered, whispered something. She nodded once, then the mirror darkened. The camera's lens adjusted, and audio cut out. That video was entered as Exhibit 42K. The defense objected, claimed it was doctored, but the file's metadata aligned with the dancer's time-stamped rehearsal schedule. And more damning, its internal ID tag, TSRR1, Taylor Swift Red Room, Witness 1. The DOJ analyst confirmed this was the same naming convention as 5 other tapes pulled during the Combs raids. One for each tour, Swift Grande Gomez Doja Dua, each tagged differently, but all carrying the same 3-letter root RRT, Red Room tapes. The analyst explained the protocol. The rooms were mobile, modular, fitted into trucks, activated with RFID keys, the cassette necklace. One such key, the one found in the hotel window. It wasn't a fan token. It was part of the control system. They weren't just moving bodies. They were recording them. At scale, across venues, backed by marketing firms that never existed, and agencies that dissolved 6 months before subpoenas landed. The witness list grew. A production assistant, a makeup tech, a bus driver, each with fragments, each pointing to a larger mechanism. One said he'd been told not to speak to girls with red bands. Another had seen multiple girls enter the same green room. None of them exited through the same door. One security guard testified he was told to direct Swift's special guests to an unmarked vehicle. He never saw where it went, but he received a cash envelope at the end of each night. The judge asked what was inside. 300, every time, exact change, no note. The media coverage exploded. What had started as a music tour had become a federal spectacle, not because of who performed, but because of who disappeared. That week, a former Pulse contractor released an anonymous statement. They said the red system had been tested in 2022, refined, scaled. They said Swift's team was never informed. They said celebrities were chosen based on crowd size, fan loyalty, and digital infrastructure. The tour wasn't the crime. It was the opportunity. The red wristbands were the entry point. But the exits, They were engineered. When asked why they came forward, the contractor quoted a line from the Swift-coded account. Because red was the root, but silence is the engine. The courtroom sat stunned, not because the machine was real, but because it had worked, for years. The trial didn't end with a confession, it ended with a projection. One final exhibit, one frame, silent, undeniable. On the screen was a fan-shot video from Nashville. The final night, stadium packed, lights dimmed, Taylor Swift mid-performance. The crowd lit up with flashlights, phones raised. Music swelled, but in the upper right corner of the frame, just for a moment, a girl in red walks away from the crowd, toward the edge of the stadium, not clapping, not dancing, not crying, just walking. The angle catches her wristband as it glows briefly under the lights. That crimson hue, identical to the others. And then she vanishes behind the loading dock entrance. She was never on the credentialed staff list. She wasn't part of the local crew. Her name was matched to a redacted line in the Scout Sync folder. Her social media went dark that night. The prosecution let the image linger. Then they played one final recording. It was a voicemail, recovered from a burner phone linked to a now-dissolved entertainment logistics group. The voice was male, the tone quiet. Don't panic. We're rerouting the drops. Use Tier 2 next time. VIP fatigue is setting in. Stick with the profiles we already cleared. The Nashville girl was too visible. Should have caught it sooner. Then a pause. She said her mom would come get her. But she never made it to the curb. The audio cut. The courtroom stayed silent. The FBI confirmed that the Tier 2 list had been flagged by an internal review agent 3 months earlier, but that the file had been overwritten before external access. The backup copy was recovered from a crashed device, Exhibit 42M. Inside were dozens of names, all women, all aged 18 to 25, all tagged with the same markers, clean, quiet, easily recast. The DOJ described the program as a casting funnel disguised as a fan experience lottery. Names would be tested for digital footprint, behavioral patterns, social response. The less visible, the more valuable. It wasn't about fame, it was about silence, and silence had been weaponized. One former handler confessed under sealed deposition that the Red program was built on principles of plausible deniability. If you run it through a fandom, he said, no one asks questions, not until it's too late. The jury delivered a statement, not a verdict. It read, "We are not here to define guilt. We are here to confirm that the machine existed." Public reaction was immediate. Protests outside venues, canceled contracts. Swift's legal team released a statement. Ms. Swift has never knowingly participated in or authorized any off-roster experience. If her brand or tour infrastructure was used to conceal abuse, she supports full prosecution of those responsible. The statement was read aloud in court. The judge nodded once, then asked the prosecution to name the system's final documented operator. They replied, "We don't know." The final IP rerouted through 7 masking nodes. The last signal originated from a boat docked off international waters, and yet the machine had paused. Wristbands stopped arriving, promotions ceased, pulse events vanished, but one last girl remained. She had not disappeared, she had returned, unannounced, unarmed, unafraid. She stepped into the courtroom on the final day, not as a witness, as a voice. The judge granted her 5 minutes. She said nothing at first, then reached into her bag and placed something on the table, the cassette necklace. She pressed play. It wasn't the original tape, it was a new recording, her voice clear. "You almost erased me." But the music kept playing, and I kept listening. So here's the last thing I'll say. This isn't about fame, this is about forgetting. And I remember everything. She walked out, no applause, no camera flashes, just a room that finally understood what silence had meant all along. And on the desk behind her, the tape kept spinning. End of record.